All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're going to challenge pretty much everything we think we know about human financial behavior, and more importantly, where it actually comes from. We usually think of economics as this very sophisticated, uniquely human invention, right? Like it was built right alongside written language or math and complex civilizations. But what if I told you that the foundation of our entire financial system wasn't invented on a trading floor? What if it was actually discovered in a primate testing enclosure? We really love to believe that markets, currencies, and all these complex economics are purely human inventions. But there's this bizarre 2005 experiment that suggests we didn't invent them at all. We inherited them. We kind of just assumed that the anxiety you feel when the stock market dips, or that absolute thrill you get from finding a bargain, are learned behaviors. We file them away under culture or education. But what if those feelings are actually an ancient biological code, a code that's literally been running in the background for millions of years? Section 1. Inventing the Monkey Economy. Keith Chen and Laurie Santos's 2005 Yale experiment. So Yale researchers Keith Chen and Laurie Santos wanted to see if Capuchin monkeys, our evolutionary relatives who split from us about 35 million years ago, could actually comprehend currency. And they specifically chose Capuchins because, well, they have small brains, they are highly food-obsessed, and they have absolutely zero cultural framework for what a trade is even supposed to look like. So the researchers introduced these small aluminum discs with holes in the middle, establishing a very simple, repetitive economic promise. Step 1, hand over the disc. Step 2, receive a delicious grape. Over and over again. Disc for grape, disc for grape. And it's wild, because after months of this repetition, the Capuchins stopped seeing the metal discs as useless junk. They actually began aggressively guarding them. They started treating these little aluminum pieces as if they had real intrinsic value, holding on to them and handing them over so carefully, almost like tiny little customers at a checkout counter. In their minds, the junk had successfully transformed into a currency. Section 2. The 2005 Yale experiment. A market with budgets. To really test this new currency, the researchers took things a step further. They built a tiny market and gave each monkey a wallet, basically an allowance of 12 tokens. And they set up different food stations in the enclosure, manned by different researchers selling different items. Now here's the ticker. Because 12 tokens couldn't buy everything at all the different stations, the monkeys suddenly had a budget. And a budget forces choices. They had to evaluate what they desired most, like Jell-O cubes or apple slices, then literally walk up to that specific researcher and make an active, conscious financial decision. And this is where it gets crazy. When the price of Jell-O suddenly dropped to 2 cubes for 1 token, the monkeys immediately noticed. They bought way more Jell-O and perfectly modeled human supply and demand curves. It was textbook supply and demand. Without ever seeing a price tag or a store or an advertisement, these cappuccinos adjusted their spending dynamically. When prices rose, they pulled back. When prices dropped, they hunted for the bargain, just like we do. Section 3. Hardwired for irrationality. The adder versus the taker. Now, the researchers wanted to see if the monkeys shared our financial flaws too. So they built a sort of trap featuring 2 different traders who both averaged a payout of 1.5 apple slices. Rational economic theory says that if the math is identical, you really shouldn't care which line you stand in. One trader, the adder, shows you 1 slice of apple, but half the time he gives you a bonus second slice at the very last second. The other trader, the taker, shows you 2 slices right up front, but half the time snatches one back before handing it to you. The payout is exactly identical, but the monkeys absolutely crowded the adder and flat out rejected the taker. What we're seeing here is the monkeys exhibiting loss aversion. This proves that the fear of a financial loss doesn't come from human culture or, a bad education. It's shipped with the primate brain. They acted as if losing something that already felt like theirs hurt so much more than never having it at all. I mean, if you've ever held onto a failing stock just because you couldn't stomach selling it at a loss, you know exactly what these monkeys are feeling. And this perfectly aligns with Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky's famous human research, which proved that a loss hurts roughly twice as much as an equal gain feels good. It's exactly why a 10% drop in your savings basically ruins your entire week, while a 10% rise barely gets a mention at the dinner table. We used to think this was a bug in our education, something that could be fixed with better schooling. But the cappuccinos prove that it's deeply embedded in our hardware, some 35 million years before the first paycheck was ever even cashed. Section 4. The first monkey robbery, when tokens became the target. Now things get really interesting. The monkeys had begun to fully realize that the tokens directly represented the food.
and that representation of the value became just as intoxicating as the value itself. So one afternoon, a Capuchin approached the token station, totally ignored the actual food, and made a very calculated decision. He grabbed an entire tray of metal tokens, flung it across the enclosure, and absolutely bolted.
Yup, this was the first recorded robbery in monkey history. It proved that the desire had successfully transferred from the grape to the symbol of the grape. As the other monkeys scrambled to scoop up the scattered tokens, it became undeniable. The monkeys were risking punishment not to steal food, but to steal pieces of metal they couldn't even eat. And if that sounds absurd to you, just remember that every balance on your phone screen is just pixels, yet we organize our entire lives around collecting more of them. The unintended monkey inventions just kept piling up. The monkeys even started handing tokens to each other as gifts to buy attention and affection, which forced researchers to seriously tighten the rules of the entire experiment. In one shocking moment, a male Capuchin walked up to a female and offered her his token, not for food, but for her attention. She accepted it, gave him her affection, and then promptly marched right over to the food station to spend that exact token on grapes. I mean, without any training, they independently invented an entire human economy in a single room in New Haven. Section 5. We inherited the economy, the biology of money.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that nobody trained these monkeys to do this. They assembled the skeleton of a human economy from scratch because the instincts were already there. Stanford neuroscientist Brian Knudsen actually found that when humans see a price that feels too high, a region of the brain called the insula lights up, and the insula processes pain and disgust. This means our brains literally file losing money right next to a physical injury. When people make financial decisions, the brain doesn't process money as math, it processes it as survival. A bad price didn't trigger our logic centers, it triggered the exact same ancient wiring that reacts to something rotten or physically painful.
For millions of years, our ancestors ran an economy based on food, alliances, and favors. This shaped the primate brain into a ruthless accounting machine, long before coins ever existed. Think about it. If you shared meat today, the group remembered tomorrow. If you cheated the group, well, they remembered that even longer. Under that intense social pressure, our brains evolved to track debts, detect unfairness, and fear losses with incredible precision.
The wanting, the fearing, the trading, it was all just waiting for a physical token to give it shape. Whether that was in 2005 with cappuccinos or thousands of years ago with us. The monkeys kept working for tokens even after they were completely full. The drive didn't stop. Because in the world that built our shared primate brain, there was simply no such thing as enough. Winter was always coming, So you never stopped stockpiling. You didn't learn money. You inherited it.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to look at your own financial anxieties and ask yourself, if those feelings belong to you or to the survival instincts of a creature that never stopped hoarding. Tonight, you'll probably check a number on your phone, and a part of you that is 35 million years old will either rise or sink in your chest. You didn't invent those feelings. You just inherited them.